Now, let's look at what's making news coming out of the African continent. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has praised French President Emmanuel Macron for recognizing the role and responsibility played by France in the 1994 genocide. The genocide left at least 800,000 people dead, mostly Tutsis. Macron, who is in Rwanda for the first time since 2010, has promised to name a new ambassador for the first time since 2015. This comes after he pleaded for forgiveness at a memorial in the capital Kigali on Thursday for his country's role. The visit is also aimed at turning the page on decades of diplomatic tensions over the genocide. Meanwhile, Kagame says the relationship between the two countries would only strengthen as they go forward.
And has just made an important statement at the Kigali Genocide Memorial. This was a powerful speech with a special meaning for what is taking place now and which will resonate well beyond Rwanda. His words were something more valuable than an apology.
And for more on this, I'm joined now by Ethan Toshobia, a journalist in Rwanda, the broadcasting agency. Ethan, good evening and thank you very much for your time. Of course, this visit comes after the release of that report in March. Is this visit just about asking forgiveness?
Thank you, Tembo, for having me. Yes, it's a historic visit indeed. One that we've had a president of France visiting Rwanda before, but we've never had a head of state from France accepting the role of France in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, but particularly a head of state from France coming out and asking for forgiveness from genocide survivors. And this is quite historic. And the fact that it is coming at this particular time when during 100 days of commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi makes even more meaning to the Rwandan society, but particularly to the survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. So it is very historic in many, many ways if you want to look at it.
What does President Kagame say about the speech delivered by the French president today?
So the head of state, President Paul Kagame, came out and said that, look, because of the history of the two countries, there is nothing that can 100% heal the wounds of the Rwandans and especially bring back 1 million lives that were lost or more. But the truth of the president of France coming out, acknowledging the truth, the role of France in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, asking for forgiveness, because apology in this case cannot be forced, but the fact that someone is acknowledging the truth is very historic indeed. And that's actually what the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, was talking about. He emphasized so much on France accepting and acknowledging and admitting the truth of what happened and the willingness to put things right.
Now, talking of the willingness to put things right, Macron also promising to name a new ambassador, the first accredited French envoy since 2015. In terms of relations, why is that significant?
So I think since 2015, we know that, the two countries sort of ceased diplomatic relations, rather, in terms of France recalled their ambassador, and then Rwanda also recalled their ambassador at some particular time. So this is something that we are going to see because we have many, many people in France who are Rwandans. We have French people who are here. So these two countries have a very strong historical background together that puts them together. So having a working and functioning diplomatic ties, I think, is one way of putting things right, trying to start all new together. And I mean, President Macron did a lot of things today. He launched, relaunched the French Cultural Center that was not, that stopped functioning the day France recalled the ambassador. We also visited some of the School of Technology here in Rwanda. Right now, if you can see, the background is quite abnormal, unusual rather. At the stadium, the Basketball Africa League is happening in Kigali, and the president of France and the president of Rwanda, they are all inside the stadium. I'm right outside the stadium. So it's something that probably he's trying to look at. How can they work together? How can France come into this relationship meaningfully, contribute to Rwanda's rebuilding and building for what France had a role in destroying?
Well, in this time of COVID-19, a very significant agreement was signed with the Finance Minister Ndagijimana. Give us more details on that.
Yes, quite a number of cooperation agreements. He also donated, he came with him, President Macron, with him about 100,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. He also mentioned about a willingness to support Rwanda in post-COVID recovery. He also pledged 500 million euros that will be dispersed to the Rwandan government in the span of 4 years. That's something that's, you can see that there is a willingness of starting over again, but helping Rwanda to rebuild 27 years after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis.
Now, of course, there are COVID-19 restrictions currently in place. Was it the normal fanfare of a state visit by an international president in Rwanda today?
I beg your pardon? I did not hear that.
I'm saying with the COVID-19 restrictions in place, was it the usual fanfare of a visiting statesman in Rwanda today, or was it a more subdued event?
It wasn't, of course, usual because of the COVID-19 pandemic and all the restrictions in place inside the stadium. This is, for instance, if I could tell you about where I am right now. This is an arena hosts about 100,000 people. But right now, I think we have half of that. And a few seats are empty because of social distancing. And even the people that attended Macron's visit to the Kigali Genocide Memorial, where he made that historic remark of acknowledgement and asking for forgiveness, there were quite a few people. Even during a press briefing, journalists were very few, were very limited. But still, the fact that he was willing to come to the country during this difficult time of commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi, of during COVID-19 period where movements across the world are restricted, is also, according to some people, is another intent of putting things right between Rwanda and France.
I appreciate your time. Journalist at the Rwanda Broadcasting Agency there, Ethan Tashobia, giving us that report tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night. For Newsroom Africa Channel 405, I am Thabo Mbili. Thank you for the privilege of your time tonight. Stay safe and distant. Goodbye.